call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my DC action figure collection. Now this time we will take a look at Aquaman from the Page Punchers line. Now this is an offshoot of the DC Multiverse, but it is under the banner of DC Direct, but it is also released by McFarlane Toys. Now there are going to be 4 figures in this wave. You have Aquaman, Black Manta, Orm, and Aqualad. Now these are all distinctive versions of these characters that actually come from the comic book that is included with these figures. So although it is not necessarily DC Multiverse, it does fit in well with your DC Multiverse collection. So of course they do make a good pairing with your DC Multiverse. Now these are a little bit different since they are released from DC Direct, but they are also very familiar. Now this guy looks pretty fishy in the packaging, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. As I stated before, these are the same as DC Multiverse, so this is kind of like just an offshoot line that is compatible with your DC Multiverse. Now these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. Now he does come with a data file card. On the front you do have an image from the comic. Now this is specific to this certain comic book art. And on the back you do have some information. Now something pretty cool is that when they first did Page Punchers, all of the figures came with basically the same comic book, the same cover, and basically the same card. But now we have moved on and advanced a little bit to where each figure actually comes with different artwork for their specific character, so that's pretty cool. Now he does come with an accessory per usual with an Aquaman figure, which is his trident. Now this one is different from all the other ones we have received. A little bit more dark gold, sort of like a bronze color. But if we want to, spice it up, we can always repaint this. But it has a lot of cool detail. Even the actual spearhead has the Aquaman logo sculpted inside there. So for what it is an awesome alternate trident for your Aquaman figure. And of course he does come with the DC Direct comic book Aquaman. Going through this, pretty cool. It has some nice artwork. You do see all of the characters represented in here. You have Orm, Black Manta, Aqualad, and also as a surprise, you actually do have the other alternate version of Aqualad in here, which I was surprised to see. But all in all, pretty cool. It's been a long time since I actually have smelled a new comic book or seen any kind of new comic book stuff. I pretty much steer clear of any modern comics, but I'm always open to checking out new stuff. But now let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. Now of course what's going to be cool about these new figures is the sculpt work. You could just tell by first impressions that the sculpt work is off the chain on these figures. Tons of detail, tons of texture, tons of added line. This one actually has a lot of armor. You got one big shoulder pauldron that's armored up on his right shoulder. Got some cool gauntlets and even some thigh guards. So of course throughout the whole figure you have some cool sculpt work. A lot of cool attention to detail, and also you can see the advancement in McFarlane's figure technology. We're just, going to the next level. I have to say it in all honesty. These figures are getting better and better. Still not 100%, or still not, all of them aren't knocking it out of the park, but I'd say, for the majority, a lot of these figures that are coming out now are vastly superior to the original figures. But he does look pretty awesome. An alternate version of Aquaman, different from the ones that we have received from McFarlane so far. Now let's take a look at the head sculpt. Now, I wasn't too excited about the head sculpt when I saw it, the images online. But now that I have it in hand, it is a really nice, well done head sculpt. You got some long hair. You got a lot of wash and highlights, which is pretty cool. You got that beard. This is a more modern take on Aquaman. And then you got a lot of different tones in the skin and in the actual hair, which is awesome. It gives it a lot of depth and much more than just a plasticky looking figure. Now, one thing I'm not a fan of is if you look at his eyes, sometimes they're looking very straight, so they can seem kind of like no life in the eyes. It's not all the time, because when you do turn them a certain way, you do get a little bit more attitude in there. But just something about the eyes looks kind of doll-like to me. And like I've said before, once you see it, you can't unsee it. That mannequin look that a lot of the figures that have straight, looking forward eyes seem to have. I could do with just a little bit of askew, eye, not necessarily side eye, but just tilted a little bit one direction, to where you could still move the head around, but it won't change, vastly the eye, the direction of the eye line. But it's not so much of a deal that I'm saying that it's bad. It's just something that I prefer, is a little bit of life in those eyes. But pretty awesome head sculpt from McFarlane. Let's take a look at the articulation. Now, right off the bat, you could tell that with the hair, you're going to have some trouble, but he does look down really well. Now, looking up is where your problem's going to be, because the hair automatically stops you from looking any more than eye level. But we can mod this, and I'll probably do it before we finish the video. But you can't force it or anything right now to go up. It just stops right there, right at the eye level. But you do have right to left. And of course you can cock his head for some attitude. And this head does have a lot of cool range, which is awesome. You can move it around with a good amount of dexterity. And even if you have to, you could lift up the shoulder guard and pass the hair so he could look to one side or the other. So all in all, pretty good, even with the limitations. Now moving down, he has a pretty awesome necklace with with like some shark teeth, it looks like, and some pretty high silver paint. Now this is where you can see the armor that he has on. It's not a shiny silver, it's more like a dull gray and kind of transparent actually. And then you have the scales on the chainmail, which is kind of different than you would normally see. It has kind of like a little bit of like feathers, like if the scales are actually longer than they should be. So they like hang over from one to the next. But it is a different take, so I'll take it for what it is. It's pretty cool. And I think it will eventually grow on you with the, with moving them around and putting them in poses. So all in all, pretty nice. And then you got that Atlantean belt. Now this is a dingier, more, like I said, bronze color of armor. You would usually think that this would be like a high yellow gold. But I do enjoy the different take with the darker, scheme of the belt and the other armored plates. And it kind of has I don't necessarily think it's a wash, but it's more like the plastic has like some kind of mixture in it where it has swirling in there. But it does add to the effect like if it was a wash. So this is a situation where McFarlane's actually using the plastic to add a little bit of depth to the figure, so that's cool. Let's take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side, and this is a really smoothly articulated figure. It just feels nice in hand. You got the full tilt-a-whirl at the waist where you could get full range around. You got a lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel, and you could twist them. This will be cool for some swimming poses, like you have them under the ocean. which is always fun to take figure photography and stuff like that. One cool thing is McFarlane's been actually doing really good with the crunches. So this guy does have a crunch forward. And if you don't believe me, you can actually see the way the scales go over each other and go down until it actually hits his belt. So that is an advancement in the articulation for McFarlane. I think that's probably like the 6th figure in a row that has some ab crunch. And of course he can lean back with the best of them. So some pretty great articulation there. Now, he does have this big shoulder pauldron on the right side, so I am going to stick mostly to the left side. Let's check out the shoulder articulation. He does have that socket and bushing kind of shoulder that McFarlane uses, which gives you a lot of range. You could move it around a lot and get the arm and shoulder in different positions. You do have up and down, front to back, and you do have a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. Look pretty good. Straightening them back out and going from the shoulders down into the gauntlets. You have more of that cool scaling. Now, I think what might look good on this is to give it like kind of like a gold wash, like right where the high parts of the scales are. So I might end up doing that because it'll give it some like reflectiveness and some pop. So that's pretty interesting, something I'm just thinking of that I might want to do to this figure. Now moving down into these like fin gauntlets. Not sure if they're for protection or for attacking or maybe even for swimming, but they're kind of like fish fins, you know, in their design. And then you go down into the hands now. Something pretty cool is that these hands, I'm starting to get like a giant box of McFarlane hands. So even though he has on the left side, he has this kind of like gesturing or like swimming hand that you could put him in like a swimming pose. If you want to, you can pop this off and actually get, I think this is the Shazam fist. And surprisingly, it's pretty close to the same skin tone. So if you pop this onto here, you can actually change it to a fist or leave it, you know, as an open hand. It's all up to your preference how you want to pose this guy. It does open it up to where you could put them in different scenarios and different, you know, figure photography stuff. So that's pretty cool. Now this guy actually does have the ball joints that were McFarlane would use at first, but I do not mind this because they are hidden really well and they actually blend right into the silhouette of the figure. So you go down from the shoulder into the hand and it's like a smooth transition and you still have your 4 ways of articulation at the hand. So it's not necessarily that the ball joints must be sculpted, but as long as they're a good size and they're hidden nicely, it does look really good. Now, of course, on the right side, you have that ginormous shoulder pauldron, which kind of restricts your articulation a little bit, but you do move down into actually a different shaped gauntlet. Like the one on the left is more like a wrap, and this one is more like an actual metal gauntlet that slides onto his arm. So that's, you know, adding a little bit of asymmetry to the figure where it's more heavy on one side visually than on the other. And this hand does have his gripping hand, of course, to grab his trident. And all these metal parts actually have a lot of sculpt work that I think if you painted it a shinier silver and then gave it a black wash, it would really make this figure look like it was a statue or $100 figure, which I'm kind of thinking that I might try and do. So all in all, pretty cool. Check out the shoulders. Kind of hard to get them into a straight T pose because of this pauldron, but you can get pretty close, so that's not a big hindrance. And then you can move one arm above his head, but the other one, of course, is restricted from the pauldron. Let's go ahead and go down and look at the thighs. Now, if you warm these up, you get a lot more range, but let's take a look at the thigh swivel. Wow, surprisingly, he already has good thigh swivel, and this is without warming him up at all. And of course, this is useful because you can actually swivel his boots from right to left, without having an ugly thigh cut or breaking up the sculpt in any way. So this is an advancement in the action figure technology where you could have a clean sculpt in the leg but still get some rotation in the boot. And then another thing is with the rubber trunks that he has, you can kick up really high because of course, since the trunks are rubber, they do move out of the way whenever you flex them. You can kick back as well. And if you look at it, it wrinkles up the trunks, even though, you know, he is getting a fuller range at the hips. But when you put them back, they do go back to their original shape, so you don't have to worry about that. Now you can cock out his knee. He has that sweet McFarlane hip swivel. Double jointed knees. Straighten them out. You got up and down at the ankle. And even though it is the ball joint, it is hidden nicely, and you do get a lot of range from that. You got right to left. Of course, rocker. And then toe articulation. Now before we go, let's take a look at the whole lower legs. And this is just a smorgasbord of sculpt work. I mean, from the boots moving up towards the shin, you have all this detailed sculpt work in the armor. You have the same, you have like some traditional Aquaman fins on the back of the calves, but they are different because they're sculpted out to look more fish-like. Like they have the bone in there with the fin membrane like in between, which is pretty interesting. And then the pants have like a cool, you know, different textures. You have like micro bead, and then you have like a thicker bead. Then you got piping lines. Man, this is just a ton of sculpt work. Look at those thigh guards. They also have some awesome sculpt work, kind of like kraken tentacles or something like that. Kind of reminiscent of the shoulder guard. But just a vast array of sculpt work and detail in this. Just looks awesome. Pretty cool. I'm really actually having a fun time with this figure, and he's going to look awesome with the rest of the collection. Now, underneath you don't have any tread, but you do have some identifying marks. Then moving up, all the detail in the metal, and then all the detail in the actual fabric of the pants. Just awesome work from McFarlane. Going into the back of the belt, and then the sculpted out scales for the upper body. See that pauldron from behind. And then the long flowing hair with a lot of actual wash. And what's cool is that it's like a darker yellow or like a darker blonde. And then you have like a darker shade in the crevices of the hair. And then you actually have a more yellow in the actual highlights and the tips, which is what, you know, we want from McFarlane. Now this is a vast contrast to the way that this shoulder pauldron looks, because this is missing paint. It looks like, you know, really plasticky without any kind of wash or, you know, any kind of metallic paint. But the head sculpt is actually what has a lot of paint. So now this guy looks really ready for a repaint, which is looking more and more like that's what I'm going to want to do. But he's a really interesting figure and has a lot of character and style. Now you can put his trident in his hand. Slip it in there. That way he's holding his trident. Now I do want to do some fun stuff before we go. Basically, you can mod the head. You can make a little cutout in the neck porthole, and then you can actually shave off some of the hair underneath where it's not visible. So when you look at it, there's no difference. But what it does give you is a little bit more range. So now he can actually look up a lot more than he could before. Now it's still not a ton, but it is more than before. And I can actually go in and shave a little bit more of the hair down and give him even more range. But for right now, this gives him a lot more possibilities. Pretty cool. Now, let's go ahead and compare him to the other Aquaman that McFarlane has given us. Now, he did give us the Endless Winter Aquaman. Another bearded version. but he does have a different trident than the one given here with this Page Punchers version. And then McFarlane gave us the Flashpoint Aquaman, even though he does have that crazy yelling head that a lot of people are not big fans of. Actually, he's a really nice figure. The thing is that he's only made to have in certain poses, like where he's like getting ready for war or like battling, because he has that certain head sculpt. So that does like minimize the ways you could pose him, but I actually do like him, and he is one of my favorite Aquamans in my collection. And just for fun, let's take out my custom classic Aquaman that I made. I do have a video here on the channel where I showed how I made this classic version of Aquaman. So that's a pretty cool wide range of versions of Aquaman. You have this Page Punchers, like kind of armored up version. You have your modern era, you have your Flashpoint, and you have your classic version. Now I did want to do some alternate heads just to see how they would look. So let's see how the modern version with the beard looks on this Aquaman's body. Pretty interesting. Now this one does have side eye, so it kind of shows you that the difference now, how it could look like, give you a little bit more attitude, kind of looking to the side. And then I don't want to put this version, the screaming version from Flashpoint, on this body, but I did do a custom repaint and remolded the head a little bit, added like teeth to make the mouth more like of a grinning, sort of Aquaman head. So let's try that head instead on this body. Kind of like a gritty general looking sort of version. And then for funsies, let's go ahead and add the classic Aquaman, which is actually a NECA Flash Gordon head, to this version of Aquaman. So all in all, gonna have a lot of fun. This guy looks like he has tons of possibilities for customizing and custom painting. We do have the other figures that are gonna be in this wave, but he is gonna look pretty awesome up here in my DC collection. You guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.